Welcome to the Football Historian Podcast.
By all means, enjoy it.
He will go right to the very top.
Dos, tres, cuatro times.
Here we go, Germans.
I will turn these results round.
All right, that's good manners.
There's animosity, but there's no fight.
If you can't beat them, join them.
How do you make me feel sick if I look at you?
No, I want to fight here.
Don't drink, don't sleep with women, don't drive fast cars.
Sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit too!
Hello, welcome to the Football Historian Podcast. Today I'm delighted to be joined by the throw-in coach, Thomas Gronnemark. I've tried my best, I've probably butchered that, I apologise. But thank you so much for joining us. It's our first ever Zoom interview that we've done. So we're going to see how it goes. It should all be all right, but I really do appreciate you coming along. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're absolutely welcome.
So a couple of quick questions we'll start off on. So this is the Football Historian Podcast. We try and talk a bit about football history here. So, first question is, what football team do you support?
I don't support any special teams because I've been coaching over 30 different professional clubs and national teams. So I try to get out of the thing with being a fan of a team. But of course, the teams I've been at for many years, for example, Liverpool FC, where I was for 5 years, I have a soft spot for them. But I have many teams around the world where I say, oh, I hope it goes well for them.
When you were growing up then, who was your team or who was your footballing hero?
Yeah, it was actually, I grew up in a small Danish town called Horsens, and actually the best team in the town only played in either the second or the third Danish league, so they weren't really good. But so it was actually my local team I supported there, but they were my heroes, even though they weren't professional.
Maybe I'll ask you another tougher question then. What do you think is the best era of football? So it can be the modern game, the 90s, the 80s, the noughties, whatever. What do you think is the best football to watch?
Yeah, I think if we go 20 years back, maybe around that time, that was really good. Also in the 80s with the good team from, for example, Milan, the Dutch national team. I think that period was really good because I think that football nowadays has a tendency to be filled with a lot of things that aren't good for the sport. And here I'm talking about just laying down on the ground, even though there's no free kick. There's also, I think, for many teams, too much time dragging, and so I want to have those days back, and that can only be done with other rules in football, I think. So again, back to your question, I think the football for like 20, 30 years ago, before all this happened, was fantastic.
I'll ask you maybe a tougher question then. The top 5 footballers of all time.
Oh, that's really, really hard. Of course, there are some players at the moment who really stick out, like Messi and Ronaldo, who also had like a career of like almost 20 years in the top level. So of course, they'll always be good. I think that a player that could have been, if you ask me, the best in the world ever, that's like, the real Ronaldo. I call him, from Brazil, but sadly enough, he was injury prone, so I think he ended his career way too early. Then I'll also like to highlight one of the players I've been coaching a lot myself, Virgil van Dijk, and now you maybe think, wow, that's a defender, and I think there's a tendency in football to when you have to look at the best players, that it's only like the players who are scoring and assisting goals, but I think that he's been really dominant, and I know there are many really, really good defenders back in time too. For example, Maldini. So I think I'll pick him too, and then if I have to take a Danish player, maybe it's not all who are familiar with him, but Michael Laudrup, who both played for Real Madrid and Barcelona. Maybe if you look at the whole football history, he might not be in top 5, but if you look at his creativity and elegance, he was, for me, for sure up there and made the game better. So that was like, some fast ones here. So all these players have brought something positive to the game.
Yeah, okay, that's a good 5. But now to make it a bit more balanced, can you pick an all-time 5-a-side team? So you can have a goalkeeper, Also in five-a-side, there's no throw-in, so you can't put any of your throwing friends in either. It's going off the walls. But who's an all-time five-a-side team?
Yeah, and for sure, and first of all, I'll say maybe we'll come back to that later. So I'm not only coaching the throw-ins, but also the movement. So I can actually have all my throwing guys in there because they also do other things than the two-handed throw. But I'll say that, and I know this is a little bit subjective, but there have been really many good goalkeepers, and I really like Alisson from Liverpool, and also because he can actually play the guitar. So he did that when we sang karaoke in my very first season in Liverpool. So we take him on goal. Of course, Virgil in the defense. Let's take Maldini too in the defense. So we'll play. Let's say we play 2-1-2. So who should we take in the midfield? I think we'll take Pirlo. So we have a lot of entertaining passes there, and then we take Messi, and then we'll take the old Brazilian Ronaldo. I think we'll take him too. So that was my five-a-side.
Yeah, that's not a bad. I don't think you're going to lose many games with that team. That's a good one. Right, so there's another thing we do here. It's called the debate.
The debate.
And I'm going to ask you to settle some of the biggest debates in football history. So the first one is Gerrard, Lampard, or Scholes, and if you can put them in order for me as well, please.
Yeah, I think that this is really based on who you support and so. But I'll try to be as subjective as possible. So I'll say that, of course, both Gerrard and Lampard, they scored a lot of goals as midfielders. You can say that Scholes, he didn't score as many goals as the other two, but he was stronger in defending side of the game. So, but again, I know there are a lot of Liverpool supporters who follow me. So to be 100% sure I'm not in a bad stand, then I'll say Gerrard, and then we'll take Lampard and then Scholes. Yeah.
The next one is Pele or Diego Maradona.
I'll choose Diego Maradona, and why do I do that? It's not because he was necessarily the best, but I think that we are lacking a lot of material around Pelé, with video footage and things like that. Even though it's there, we have much more footage of Maradona. And then the other hand, when Maradona was really good, I was also like a kid, a teenager. So I also experienced him in the telly. And so if I had experienced both, it was really hard, but I choose Maradona.
Right, that's a good one. And then the next one, Messi or Ronaldo?
I'll probably choose Messi. But again, if I should choose one, then it should be the Brazilian Ronaldo, and I prefer him than Messi and our current Ronaldo, yeah.
Right, if Messi and Ronaldo are the best players of the last 10, 15 years, who do you think is third best behind them?
Yeah, it's quite hard. There's a lot of players up there. We'll just take Virgil there. Yeah, so.
Okay, great. And then next one, another player you've worked with. It's Mo Salah or Eden Hazard.
Oh yeah, for sure, Mo Salah. And why? Because you can say that on the top of their game, they were probably approximately as good. So, but you can say that Mo Salah has been on the top for many years, and I think that even though I loved Eden Hazard, then he was like fantastic in Chelsea, and then he really dipped when he went to Spain. So that's a shame because he played some fantastic football. So it has to be Mo Salah.
Goalkeepers, Buffon, Casillas and Neuer. Could you put them in an order for me?
Yeah. Actually, a really funny story because I've been coaching in really many different clubs around the world. And one of the clubs I've been coaching a few years ago, it was Parma. And actually, Buffon was in Parma there. So I've actually met Buffon and said hello and talked a little bit with him. So I'll take him, yeah.
And then the last couple of questions before we go to your career. The next one is club or country. Normally I ask, if you were captain of both, what would you rather win a major trophy with?
Most of the year, it's the club that's the most exciting, and then we have in the big championships like Europeans or World Cup. I think that the country can be even more exciting than the club. So it's always depending. I think one of the big challenges with the national teams is that even though they tried with Nations League and so it's quite boring to see national teams only when you come to the big tournaments. So that'll be a double answer for this question.
The most underrated player ever. So it could be someone you've worked with or just someone in football who you don't think gets the credit that they deserve.
Also, it's always, I've been working with so many players, also world-class players. If I have to say a player who was so fantastic, but maybe not that many people saw that, even though he was, of course, really, really good. It was Daley Blind. I coached in Ajax. And when I'm coaching throw-ins in the clubs, it's not only the throw-in that's actually itself. It's actually a quite small part of my coaching is more space creation. And Daley Blind, he had like a totally amazing football intelligence. So I learned him a lot of things, and some of the space creation he did as a central defender. So that was like crazy, totally crazy. So together with Joel Feldman, who's now in Brighton. So what we did there in Ajax, that was amazing. So he has a fantastic football brain, and then he's also a fantastic, kind person. So I think he's really underrated, even though, of course, he's a world-class player. I know it, but if people saw what he could do and what he did, people would be more impressed.
The best manager of all time.
Oh yeah, that's really hard. Of course, I have a soft spot for Jurgen Klopp because we worked together for 5 years and we won 7 titles. So of course, I have a soft spot for him. And how do you measure best managers? Is that the amount of titles because then he's not on the top, or is it the amount of influence and how good he makes the players, what a culture he's putting in? So again, even though I've been working with many, for example, Erik ten Hag in Ajax and many other big managers around the world and head coaches, let me just pick Jurgen.
The last question before I say we go into your career is, who is the greatest football team of all time? So not like a 1 to 11, like a team. So it could be like a season, be it 2 years, a tournament, whatever. But who do you think is the best team ever assembled?
If I should pick one team, and not thinking about who I've been coaching myself of great teams, then I'll say I can really remember the AC Milan team in the late 80s. So we had Barassi, Maldini, Van Basten, Ruud Gullit, Van Rijkaard. That was, I can remember that as a young teenager. That was like a crazy team, but also like, yeah, wow, all these personalities. Not only a good team, it was like a lot of fantastic personalities. So I'll probably pick that. It could also be like the Barcelona team from like, I can't remember, 2010, 2012, like, of course, with Messi, but also Iniesta, Xavi, Busquets, all these Puyol, all these great characters. And then, of course, I have to bring my Champions League and Premier League winning team, Liverpool FC. So, that was three teams. Sorry about that.
Yeah, don't worry, that's all good. Right, okay, so we're going to go more specific onto your career now. I think you might say I'm wrong, whatever, but I think, especially in England, the idea of a throwing coach when you arrived was almost something that was ridiculed. I think Andy Gray spoke on television when he got there, just basically saying, how can a throwing coach get you any further? How small in the minutiae can you get in football to try and make anything better? Basically laughing at what you do. I know you've already said you do more than just throw-ins, but how hard was it for you to convince football clubs that they should get a throwing coach, or were clubs always more accepting than maybe like pundits and supporters?
No, it was actually not that hard because, yes, of course, I worked many years to get my international breakthrough, but I've been coaching Danish Super League club since 2004, so I had to wait 14 years before Jurgen Klopp called me. But the football clubs itself, that wasn't actually hard. I've been coaching the last 7 years, like 6, 8, 10 different pro clubs per season. So that was actually not hard. And when you say ridiculous, that's totally right that Andy Gray did that, Richard Keys on beIN Sports. But I'll say that, no, it was not everybody who did that. I'll put people into 3 categories. People who are like really forward-thinking, thinking in new ways, open-minded. They're really supportive, not only in football, but also in business. I've been doing a lot of talks around what I know for companies. I've been in New York Times, Forbes magazine, Sky Sports, BBC, those kind of people. They're seeing it as innovative, so that's fine. Then I had a part of people who were saying, okay, throwing coach, what is that? That sounds weird. But they were asking questions. They're not ridiculing me. They were just asking questions. And then, of course, you have the last part. But you also, again, have to ask yourself, who is laughing? So, of course, I have some personalities who want to have some attention because they laughed of me. So, like Andy Gray, Richard Keys. Then I also have some people who ridiculed me because they were fans of Everton or Manchester United or so, because I was coaching in Liverpool FC. So for me, it was no problem. It was actually, you just have to look at, first of all, who's saying these things. And then, yeah, that's one thing. And then can you prove that you're actually right, that it helps, that the thing you're working with. So for me, it was actually not a problem. It was actually the opposite. So every time a person who was like saying something crazy about me and my coaching, my work in Liverpool, for example, Andy Gray, Richard Keys, but it was also Steve Nicol in a long period in ESPN FC. Every time they said that, I got more supporters, I got more jobs, because if you're ridiculing someone without any, how can you say, proof of what you're saying, if you're just saying, wow, that's bad or that's laughable, then it doesn't help anything. So in this modern world, you need to have proof of what you're saying, also if you're laughing about a thing, because now the fans, they often have a lot of knowledge. So everything has been fine for me. Yeah,
well, that's it. I say the best way to hit back at critics is by proving them wrong. And not only did you start working for Liverpool, you got contract extension after contract extension. So what you were doing was obviously working. How easy was it then to convince the players that your ideas worked? Were they harder to get on board than Jurgen Klopp, or was everyone at Liverpool and every club you've been at, has it always been acceptance for what you were saying?
Yeah, I'll say I feel the players are really, really motivated in general, and I also do my best not only to learn things but also make the training entertaining. But you can say that Liverpool FC, that was like an international breakthrough. And what happened exactly in my first training was that, and actually I shouldn't even train when I got my first visit to Liverpool. It should only been a meeting. But Jurgen Klopp was so convinced. So I got the chance to coach 21 Premier League players the day after the meeting. All the players who weren't injured or at vacation after the World Cup. So the first training started, and what you have to remember is that Liverpool just had a season with a 4th place in the Premier League and a Champions League final. They lost to Real Madrid. So they were either quite close to the title or really close. And those players, they wanted to improve, because you can't take that next step up if you're not better. So Jurgen Klopp started my very first training session in Liverpool by saying, we had a fantastic season last season with a 4th place in Premier League and Champions League final against Madrid. But our biggest weakness was perhaps the throw-ins. We lost the ball almost every time, and later data showed that too. And I brought in Thomas, and I know he has a special job as a throw-in coach, but I'm 100% convinced that he can help us improve our throw-ins. And then just after that, it took like 30 seconds or so, I came in and I said, I'm not going to make you into Stoke number 2. And with that I meant that we're not going to take a lot of long throw-ins like Stoke did. I do that with some of my other teams, depending on the playing style. But I said to them, I'm 100% sure I can help you. So the players were motivated to improve their general game, and they saw that the throw-ins could be one of the most decisive factors for that to happen. So I've seen players who are really motivated, and you can also see that for example, a month after it came, Andy Robertson Robo, he said on the press conference at a national team match for Scotland, he said that now it's already worked. He said now we are switched on when there is a throw-in, and he said a lot of other things too. So, and of course, when you're having success, and I helped Liverpool go from number 18 in the Premier League with a possession on 45.4% on throw-in under pressure, to number 1 in the Premier League in my first season with a possession on 68.4%. And when you do that, and this is actually data from Tifo Football, so it's not my own data. So if you prove that, so one thing is that you proved that you have improved the team, but you're also a part of a Champions League victory, Premier League victory, 7 titles all in all, then it's much easier to motivate the next teams. So yes, generally, most of the players been coaching, they're really motivated. Of course, once in a while, you can have a single player who's not motivated because he's not on the team, he's not in the start 11, then he's not motivated, but that's normally just general motivation. So back to your question, I see a lot of motivated players, so yeah.
Yeah, it's understandable because I think at Liverpool as well, they had the thing where they put like the stuff on their heads where they were taking penalties, and then straight after that, the Carabao Cup final, they score every penalty, including the goalkeeper. So, as you say, in football at that high level, it's about finding the 1% and to make yourself that tiny bit better. And I was going to touch on what Andy Robertson said quite soon after you arrived. He was approaching that press conference almost in a joking way, saying, how can a throwing coach make you any better? And he proved them wrong with what he said. Another player at Liverpool as well is Joe Gomez. I think I never particularly noticed him having a really long throw-in, but after you came, he seemed to take a few, like not all the time, but when needed. And I think when he went to England as well, he was credited for having a long throw-in. That was like a different weapon in England's arsenal. Is that something that you do in increasing the distance of a player's throwing, or as you say there, you don't want to make them a new Stoke, but is that something that can also help when it's needed, you can launch it into the box if possible?
Yeah, in Liverpool, we did a few ones at the start of the season, just the very first season when I arrived. But in Liverpool, the long throwing improvement was more to create better counter-attack weapons because you can throw down the defense, behind the defense, and also increase the throwing area of the players. For example, when I came to the club, Robo Andy Robertson could only throw 19 meters and 80. But he improved to 27 meters. And even though 27 meters, that's not world-class, he still increased the throwing area. Where he can throw to teammates with more than 500 square meters. So in Liverpool, it was more that I focus on. And yes, most of the players I coached in the long throw-in technique over a period, they improved 5 to 10 meters, some even up to 15 meters. For example, the first session I had in Liverpool, Joel Matip, he improved from 21.90 to 30 meters, so 8 meters and 10. So that was only with a little bit more efficient technique. But again, in Liverpool, we didn't focus too much on that. But I have other teams where we do a lot on long throw-ins. For example, last year, my local team, Kolding here in Denmark, second league team, scored 12 goals on long throw-ins. In my last period in FC Midtjylland from 2015 to 18, we scored 35 goals on long throw-ins in 4 seasons, or approximately 9. This season, I'm also working for FC Midtjylland. They also play Europa League. They already now in this season scored 9 goals on long throw-ins, so we're only halfway through the season. They scored the last decisive goal on a long throw-in here in the Europa League, so they went to the knockout stages. So yes, I do that in some of my clubs. But for example, in Liverpool, we focus more on what I call fast and clever throw-ins. when I was in Dortmund last season, we did that. When I was in Ajax. So, and the fast and clever throwing, that's more about, of course, fast is about reacting fast, taking good fast decisions, marking fast. But the clever throwing, that's a lot about space creation. How can we create space together as a team with different solutions? So we either keep the ball or we create a chance to score our goal after a throw-in situation. In Liverpool, the 5 seasons I was in Liverpool, we scored 10 to 15 goals directly after throw-ins each season, and some of them were also where we took the ball from the opponents. So yes, back to your question, I did a little bit long throw-in Liverpool, but we mostly have focused on the fast and clever ones there.
A throwing coach, as we touched on before, can be seen as such a small part of the game. You look at Aston Villa at Arsenal now, Arsenal especially, they've got a mural of their set piece taker. Every corner he stands up on the edge of the tactical area, the cameras are on him, it goes to Gabriel's head and they seem to score. How small of an area of football can you have a specialist in? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's obviously not going to happen, but like, you know, a kick-off specialist, whatever. How small can it be? And obviously I know it's all about making the 1%, and that's, I'm not saying it's bad to have that, but like, how specific can you get in coaching?
I think, first of all, I'd like to say before I go on to that is one of the biggest misunderstandings around my coaching, is that it's either marginal gains or that 1%. And before I go into that, I'll try to look at the numbers. You have 40 to 60 throw-ins in a match. You are spending around 20 minutes of a match on throw-ins and throw-in related situations. So almost a third of a match. Then you can't call it like small or 1%. You should call it instead gigantic gains or 10% gains or so. And suddenly it gives a meaning to have a specialist to help you with that. And then to your second part of your question, or your real question there, is that it depends on, because for me, there's nothing that's too small. If you can show a value that's big enough to make people hire you, then it's big enough. So there's no like I can say barrier what you can help football teams with, or what can be a niche or an expertise. And to give a specific example, a really good friend of mine, Sammy Lander, I think it was in 2021 August or so, he became the first substitution coach for Wimbledon FC in League One. And since then, he's been like freelance substitution coach. And you say, wow, substitution? Isn't that the manager and the assistant coach who should decide that, and the physical coach? No, Sammy, he had some like research and proved that he had some knowledge that could make teams make better substitutions so they won more games. So again, for me, there's nothing too small. It's more about, is the value big enough, and can you prove the value, and can you fit into a team? Because one thing is to have the knowledge, but you also have to fit into a football team, and so again, but of course it can be really different. Can you deliver your knowledge online? Can you deliver your knowledge on site? And I can do both. Of course, my work with the biggest clubs in the world has for 99% of them been on site and coaching on the pitch, including video analysis and so. But for example, under COVID-19, I helped Flamengo with the throw-ins because I couldn't travel to Brazil. I did it online. They won the Brazilian championship the year I helped them, so that was not bad. I'm also having an online course called Gronnemark's Throw-in Mastery, primarily for amateur and youth coaches. A lot of coaches are buying this. So when you're talking about how small should a niche be, of course, it's depending on the value you can give and how you can deliver it too. So yeah.
Okay, well, I apologise. I was saying 1%. I wasn't having a go. Yeah, I'm just chatting to him. More about what you do.
No worries, no worries.
Obviously, as you say there, this is your job. This is what you do. You're going from club to club. What piece of advice could you give to maybe a youngster who's starting to play football, who wants to improve the throw-ins? Obviously, you do this in more finer detail, and you charge for your services. So I'm not expecting all the secrets. But what's like one or two key things that someone could do to be able to throw a ball further?
Yeah, I'll say that again. regarding to throw the ball further, it doesn't help you to get a couple of pieces of advice, because that's like technical. Then it's much better to board my online course, and it's not because I want to sell something. It's just too complex to say do this or do this. But just to say it shortly, I'll say that I'm working with 30 different technical parameters, and I put them in 3 teams. The power position, how your body is positioned when you're on the line. Then I have the transfer of the energy, how you can transfer the energy over the line when you're releasing the ball, a little bit like javelin throwing, just with another technique, and then the run-in itself. But again, I'll say that if you're a football player, then it's more important that you're also working with your precision, both to coach, both to train precision on the feet, but also in front of the player, running behind the defense, things like that, throw into a pocket. It's so important. So I'll do that if I was an individual player, and if I was a coach, and maybe you ask this later, but if I was a coach, I'll first of all start setting time off for throwing coaching. And some people think, wow, should we then throw all the time? No. In my throwing, long, fast and clever throwing philosophy, the throwing itself is only a small part. So it's all about giving the players that throwing intelligence, different tools, different strategy. And of course, first of all, I'll recommend them to take my online course. It's so cheap that I'll say that most coaches can afford it. And you can see that on throwingacademy.com. But I also say that you need to put throw-ins into your training, because you can't expect your players to be better at throw-ins if you're not training it. So I hear from so many clubs, we're also talking with coaches, that they're not doing throw-ins in training. They're doing kick-ins, or start by the goalie, or the coach throw the ball in like with one hand. And how can you then expect your players to perform really well on throw-ins? So you need to get throw-in coaching in your training, and I'm here to help.
I wouldn't say I'm a massive fan, but I've watched a little bit of basketball. I only started watching a couple of years ago. But when you see them in with this 1.5 seconds left on the clock, and they come over, the coach has got a board, everyone knows exactly what way they're moving. It's like it's a choreographed dance almost, where everyone knows what position they're moving. Can that happen in football, in that you can have it that intrinsically thing that moves, that every single player makes a movement to make space? And is there stuff to take from other sports that can improve not just throw-ins, but the tactics in football?
Yeah, first of all, I'm using a lot of things from other sports. I use a lot from basketball. I've been playing myself in a club. I've also been playing street basketball my whole life. I see a lot of NBA and actually in March 2023, I was visiting Boston Celtics training facility, while I was also doing a keynote speak on Howard Medical School and MIT. So I use a lot of basketball myself. I use some things from American football. I use things from research around the Roman army, flock of birds, art, and so I use a lot of knowledge, not from football. But back to your question around basketball. Yes, they have that 24-second shot clock there, and the way they often do it in basketball, at least what they did in Boston Celtics, I was told when I was there, is that they're playing with a sequence. So they have like 4 sequences. So try to go one sequence. If that hasn't created the necessary space for a good action, then they do the next sequence. And then if the time is running out, they're having like other things they can do in the 4th one. And you can do the same with football and throw-ins. It's just really important for me to say that I think that it's good that we have a lot of set-piece coaches in the game. And it's really important for me to say that I'm not a set-piece coach. I'm a throwing coach. And I'm often invited to clubs where they already have a set-piece coach, because they don't know much about throw-ins, more corner kicks and free kicks. But one of my worries with the new set-piece coaches is that I see a lot of set-piece coaches who wants to do the throw-ins like corner kicks and free kicks. So I see many set-piece coaches saying, okay, in this zone, we have 1 or 2 solutions. In this zone, 1 or 2 solutions. This zone, 1 and 2 solutions. The challenge with that same approach as with free kicks and corner kicks is that the opponent's defending pattern, how the opponents are standing, or the opponents are just marking well. That means that you can't do what you have decided. So yes, of course you can do throw-in tools and pre-prepared things. I'm not saying you can't do that, but you have to train the players throw-in intelligence. So for example, in Liverpool, we had so many different options in the mid-zone. So for example, in the mid-zone, 15 to 20 options. Do you then think that, wow, do they have to learn 15 to 20 options? No, they have to learn to create space together, and then they have to see spaces being created, and those spaces can be different depending on how the opponents are standing already from the start or how they move when you start to move. So actually, yes, back to your question, you can learn a lot from basketball. But my biggest fear with the new set-piece coaches is that they start to control what the players should do. That will be bad for football because then we lose a lot of throw-in intelligence, a lot of throw-in creativity, and I don't want to do that. I want a whole mixture of a lot of things around throw-ins, both tools, both solutions, both creativity and throw-ins, and this is what I teach in my long and fast and clever throw-in philosophy, also in my online course.
You said there that you've had a throw-in this season that helped the team progress in the Europa League. Has there been a throw-in routine that has the biggest payoff? Like, is the one goal that, maybe clinched a trophy, won a league, whatever, that you look back on and go, oh, that was possibly my work paying off at its very best?
No, not so much. Like I said, with Liverpool, we scored 10 to 15 goals after throw-in situation after every season in 5 seasons. We won 7 titles, and we were like crazy close to the 2 more Premier League titles when I was there. But but lost it against City there. I've been a part of, all in all, 15 titles in international football, also with Philadelphia Union, FC Midtjylland, Wisla Krakow, Toulouse, Flamengo, Brazil. What's the one more? I can't remember. Oh, sorry. So for me, it's not so important that it's decisive. It's more like a part of the whole, how can I say, the whole team, what we've done all in all. For me, it's not important to stand like and having the decisive goal and be the hero. So, but of course, I'm just a part of the team, and I'm really good at melding in together with different personalities, and so I love that. But of course, there are some goals I love a lot. For example, I can remember we scored a goal with Liverpool FC in the Champions League against RB Salzburg. And I know maybe because you only hear it, it can be hard to imagine. But we had a throw-in the right side with Trent Alexander-Arnold. Bobby Firmino, he was marked in a zonal defense with by RB Salzburg. And one of the disadvantages by zonal defense is that you're not that close to the player you want to mark. So Trent threw to Bobby Firmino. He did a return pass to Trent again. Then Trent, he did what I call a mini switch to the second central defender. That was Virgil. He had a lot of space on the other side. Then Virgil played the ball to Robo, who progressed up the pitch on the other side on the left flank. Then he played on to Sadio Mane. And then we were already up on the penalty area at RB Salzburg. Then actually he played a 1-2 Sadio Mane with Bobby Firmino, who came up, and then he got the ball again, and then he made a little chip over the goalie. So that was maybe, if you ask me, the best, or not only the best throwing goal maybe, but also the throwing goal from my teams where you could tell so many different things about it. So I think that's maybe my favorite throwing goal.
In terms of coaches, you've already said before, Jurgen Klopp, the greatest coach in your opinion. Obviously, a little bit biased with working with him, and I'm certainly not going to disagree with you being a Liverpool fan myself. He's a massive figure in the game. Jurgen, what's he like as a person, and have you got any funny stories of spending time with him?
Of course, I have a lot of funny stories, but I'm keeping them to myself. Sometimes I tell a couple of funny stories in my keynote speeches, but I'll rather say what I really like about him. Of course, we all know he's ambitious person. Of course, you have to be that if you want to be a world-class manager. You also know he's quite funny too. You can see that in his interviews. But what many don't know about him is he's a really good listener. So he's not like the type who just wants to talk about himself all the time. He's really listening. And that was really clear for me all the 5 years I was in Liverpool. but also in my very first meeting at Melwood, at the old Liverpool training ground there, and he was just like, we were just talking for at least an hour or so. I can speak German too, so we spoke on English and German about throw-ins, about football, about everything in life, and he was just listening. And it was not like he said like, okay, try to hear what we did with the throw-ins and then try to twist it a little bit. No, he was so open-minded. So I don't think you feel that unless you actually talk with Jurgen. So imagine a really, really good friend who's also a really good listener too. That's and I think that's one of the reasons why he can create so good relations with the people around him, not only the players and staff, but also people coming from the outside. But also he's also a really good culture creator as a leader. So I think that he created really good culture at Liverpool FC, and he was really good at creating a culture where people work together. And I'm actually also a specialist in this area because I've been doing over 700 keynote talks for companies, not only in Denmark but also around the world. So I've also been writing. I'm coming out with my second book here in March. So I know a lot about the subject. So I can for sure say that Jurgen Klopp is not only a fantastic person, a fantastic manager, but also a fantastic leader and culture creator.
You spent a lot of time at Liverpool, but obviously you don't work for the club anymore. How come you left your role there? But is that just a nature of your job that maybe there's only so much you can do, or could you see you could work for more than one club at a time? So how come it was that you left Liverpool, or was it just for other opportunities?
It was actually quite, and I also have like the full story on my YouTube channel, so you can of course see the video there. But to tell it like quite shortly, the first 2 years I was in Liverpool, so 18-19, 19-20 season where we won the Champions League and Premier League, I was there like 4 or 5 times per season, so like a week. And then I analyzed all the games. I did that in 5 years. So, but I had 4 to 5 visits in the club, either in the club in Liverpool or training camp in Evian, France, Marbella, Spain, things like that, and Austria too. And then COVID-19 came, and the crazy thing was that it was actually really hard for me. I'm based in Denmark. It was really hard for me to come into England. It was actually much easier for me. I coached a couple of times in Mexico in that period. It was much easier for me to come into Mexico than England. That was crazy. So I had like 2 seasons where I was only visiting the club 1 time per season. Again, I analyzed all the games and sent reports every week or several times a week. So I always knew what was happening and gave some value. And then we came to my 5th season. So that was like 22-23 season. And then I was there like 2 times because then the COVID-19 was, on the way back. And so I was there like in the start of the season, then April. But I think it was too little because I think, especially the 2 first years I was in the club, we were probably the best throw-in team in the world, also considering the high pressure in the Premier League, especially. And it wasn't that we were bad. We just went from great to good. And I'm not satisfied about being good if you can't be great. So I just talked with Jurgen, and I said to him that I think it's really important that if we want to raise the level a little bit more again to great, that I come to the club again like 4 or 5 times next season. And then, he thought about it, and then he said to me, I think the next season we want to try ourselves with the throw-ins. But I've also been there in 5 years, and if you ask me, of course, the best solution had that I was continuing in Liverpool and then had 4 to 5 visits the next season there. But the second best solution, that was for sure that I stopped in the club, because the third solution about only coming there like 1 time again the next season, that wasn't good enough for me. So, but again, I won't complain. If you told me when I was 10 years old that you're going to be a throwing coach for Liverpool FC, coach them in 5 years, winning Champions League, Premier League, and 5 other titles, I would think that I would have been crazy, So I just cherish all the 5 seasons in Liverpool. I had so many good moments, and for sure, that call and my work in Liverpool FC also gave me my international breakthrough and gave me the chance to help so many people with the throw-ins all around the world. So I've been traveling the whole Europe. I've been traveling, coaching in USA. I've been coaching in Mexico several times. I've been coaching the English national team. I've been coaching just here recently, Kawasaki Frontale in Japan, So I'm just happy about my time in Liverpool FC.
I hope this isn't an offensive question to ask a throwing coach, but I feel like when the subject of throw-ins come up, and you've already mentioned it yourself, Stoke City under Tony Pulis and Rory Delap, they are throw-ins in most people's minds. If you talk about someone who made the most of a throw-in, I think Peter Crouch has even spoke about how he used to watch opposition players kick the ball out for the corner rather than a throw-in. Has there ever been a team more effective with throw-ins than Stoke City, and would you have enjoyed working with them and Rory Delap?
Yeah, first I'll say I think we have to cut it up in two. So you can ask yourself, has there ever been a more effective team on long throw-ins than Stoke? Because with Liverpool FC, we scored many more goals on throw-in situations than Stoke did in that time, but that was just the fast and clever throw-ins. But people don't see that so much because a lot of people watching football, they are first watching when the ball is almost in the net, So that's one thing. So yes, Stoke CDFC was fantastic with the long throw-ins, but actually, if you look at FC Midland that I'm coaching now, they were more efficient than Stoke on the long throw-ins. And I know, yes, it was the Danish Super League and Stoke was in the Premier League. I know that. But again, if you see this last period, like I mentioned before, 2015 to 18, 35 long throw-in goals, so almost 9 per season. But even better this season when I'm also coaching them this year on the long throw-ins, 9 goals already now. Of course, there's no guarantee what it'll end with, but already 9 long throwing goals now. It's not unrealistic that it'll be 13, 14, 15 long throwing goals. And if that happens, there'll maybe be. Of course, I don't have statistics from every game in all leagues in all the history of football, but I think that'll maybe be the best team ever in professional football regarding the long throw-ins. So yeah.
Last couple of questions that I want to ask you. You've got a world record. Would you like to explain how you got that and what your world record is?
Yeah, and actually, I'll say my world record was beat in 2019, but in 2010 I set the official Guinness World Record with a throw of 51.33 meters, and I actually got the idea in 2008 because I thought, wow, if I have the longest throw-in in the world, maybe I'll get noticed internationally, because at that time I only coached Danish professional Super League team, like the best league is called in Denmark. And at that time, there was an official Guinness World Record of 48.17 meters set by Mike Lochner from the States in 1998. So at that time, it was 10 years old, the record. I could throw approximately 42 meters with a normal run-in. With the throw in there, and that's actually really far, because normally I say if you can throw 34 meters, like the players I coach, that's like world class. So 42, that's really long. But I also knew that was quite far up to the 48 meters. So I decided to try to beat the world record with a flip throw in. So a flip throw in is you have the ball in your hands, take a run in, jump down on the ball, make a flip, land on your feet, and throw the ball. The only challenge was that I was a non-gymnast. So I trained for like 2.5 years. I had help from 3 different gymnast coaches, and to make this quite long story quite short, then I had a world record attempt in a match Denmark-Spain in 20th of August 2008, full stadium. Then I had a world record attempt in 2009 in the Olympic Stadium in Berlin, 40,000 spectators in the halftime break of the match, Hertha Berlin against Wolfsburg. And then in 2010, I set the official Guinness World Record at 51.33 meters. So, of course, it's also a part of my stories. It's also one of the stories I tell when I do some of my many keynote talks around the world. But again, I beat the world record. I I've been doing a lot of special things, also being a part of the Danish national bobsleigh team for 4 years. So for me, I normally say that life is a buffet. Take all the chance you can in life. If you think you can perform well, and if you think you miss a little bit, then you can get help from people. So yes, back to your question, I beat the official Guinness World Record. I had it for 9 years, and I'm really proud about that.
Eating from the buffet of life is a great saying. You've done that again you've ventured into the music world as well with a single that you've released recently. Can you explain why that's come about?
Yeah, it was actually because, I've always been singing my whole life, not professionally, but I'm singing like quite 1-2 hours per day because I love to sing. I can't play any instruments. I've also always written songs. And so, for example, many years ago when I was in the military for 1 year, you have to do that as when you're a young Dane. Then I wrote the company song too, things like that. So then I just got an idea. I thought, wow, maybe I could also like publish a song. And so I got in contact with a big music producer called Rune Broger from Denmark. And he's, of course, been working with a lot of the Danish top musicians, but he's also been working with, for example, Carly Rae Jepsen from Canada, the one with Call Me Maybe, the most heard song in 2011. So I talked with him and I said, yeah, I've been writing a song and I'm singing. And he said to me, wow, yes, just send it to me. But if you can't handle the feedback, then you shouldn't send it to me, because if it's not good enough, I'll tell you straight to your face. So I was a little bit nervous, not to say really nervous, because, we have seen talent shows where people think they're really good at, and then they're not good. But I sent the music to him, and then he was like, really, wow. He said that could be a hit. So I recorded my song called Complicated Love. So that's like C and then Complicated Love. So you can find it on every streaming. And it came out the 7th of June last year in 2024, just between the Champions League final and the Euro starting there. And it was like, yeah, it's been going really well. I just from Spotify, I got the stats there in the end of 2024, and it was listened to in 129 different countries. So just search my name, Thomas Gronnemark, Spotify, then you can hear it. And actually, one of the funny stories is actually also, I know from inside resources that actually the Danish national team, they heard it in the dressing room at the Euros. It's been heard a lot, for example, in Latin and South America. So that's also crazy, Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, a lot of people. So go in and find my song on Spotify. Just search my name, then you'll find it, and then or other music resources, and then you're welcome to write to me and give a little bit feedback. So that was a fantastic thing to do for me, a big dream come true for me. So I'm really happy I did it.
We'll finish off there, but I can just ask you one final question. What is your next big career aim? So you've got a world record, you've got a single, you've worked for the biggest clubs in the world. Is there another thing that you want to tick off your box, or what is it? What are you aiming for next?
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of times. Again, like I mentioned before, I'm publishing my second book on Danish now. I'm doing a lot of public speaking. I love that a lot. So if anyone listening, I'm speaking all around the world. So just invite me. I guarantee entertaining talk. Also, I'll with some knowledge, a lot of things you can take with you. Yes, maybe I'll do more music in the future. Of course, I do a lot of throwing coaching. Maybe I'll get. I've been working with some stand-up too, comedy, and let's see if that will happen too. So for me, it's about you're only living once. And for example, the title of my second Danish book here is if we translate it to English, is like long-term brave. So I think that a lot of people are going to think, wow, should I do that? That's a dream. No. And then they don't do it. Often it's also because we expect that other people will laugh or think it's crazy. And yes, maybe there are a few that will, but we have to remember that every time we do something, you also probably also thought before you made this podcast, how could we, should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? And often when we take the first step to a dream or start an initiative, often there's a lot of people saying, wow, that's cool or brave. And they're often thinking, wow, I wish I could do the same. So back again to your question, until I die, I'll put projects in. I'll do the things I love. I'll try to help as many people do the same. I'll try to motivate people through my talks, for example, my online content, or when I meet them live. So so let's see what the future brings.
You've helped me by coming on today. I really do appreciate it. I've messaged you a few times on Instagram. I probably annoyed you with messages, but thank you so much. As I said, this is our first video interview here, so we'll see how it goes, and I really appreciate you coming along to do it. For anyone watching at home, what's the best way to get in touch, to follow you, or whatever they mean to do?
I'd say the best way is either to go into just the social media, just write my name, Thomas Gronnemark, then you'll find me, and I'm on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. I also have a homepage called throwinacademy.com. So you can find that easily too by searching my name. And I'm a kind of guy who are talking with everybody. So don't be afraid of contacting me, because my biggest goal is not to be successful or earn a lot of money. My biggest dream is to help as many as possible. So no matter who you are, you're welcome to write to me. No matter if it's about advice, if it's about a talk, if it's about something else. So I'm ready for that.
As I say, I really do appreciate you coming along. Thank you so much. I'm sure a lot of people find that very interesting. And so thank you for joining us. And thank you everyone at home for listening and for watching on the Football Historian podcast.